Found out about the affair. I found out my wife is having an affair with her coworker. She needed a break from dropping of the kids one morning, so I helped out that day with drop-offs. Something was off, so I checked her phone and it was still in our neighborhood when she should have been at work already on the railroad. She gets in a car and I call here to question her about this and she says she's on the train. Meanwhile I can see the car moving on the Find My iPhone app. Later that day she confesses to taking an Uber. My gut was telling me something was off, so I checked her Uber/Lyft ride history and no cabs. I confronted her about it and she said she called a cab but no call history and she never has cash. After a week still my gut is telling me something's off. I check the phone logs from the phone carrier and boom. I find the guy's phone number. They speak most days after work before picking up my kids. They speak on all her off days for hours, and recently I was on a business trip and she drops of the kids to her sisters and is on the phone with this man for 3 hours. I could only go 6 months back. This has likely been going on for a year. She confessed that he picked her up and that it was the only time this has happened. Clear bullshit. I confronted her about it and told her I want a divorce, and typical cheater she apologizes but says it's not a big deal. She says they just talk about work, kids, and their spouses. He's married 4 kids. She deletes all the calls and messages daily. She says they just speak and never had sex. But I don't believe a word coming out of her mouth at this point. She has zero respect for me, so I'm out. There is no way I can stay and question where she is and be checking her phone for the rest of my life. We had issues with boundaries years ago because this colleague would text her all the time. They moved to different offices and now he landed in her office again. For context, we have 2 small kids and are married 10 years and together for 20 years. I gave her my all nice place to live, dinners, vacations, time and attention. I'm great with the kids. I will persevere. I will be the best possible dad to my kids. But man, this stings. These are the unexpected curveballs that life throws at you. Comments.
Deleting messages daily with a coworker is already way past just talking LOL. Yeah, the only reason to delete something is BC, it's incriminating. Does his wife know he's cheating too? Your marriage isn't the only one they ruined. They actually deserve each other. I hope they never break up and only ruin each other's lives forever. That should be in their wedding vows. Contact the AP's wife and see if you can get her to check his phone for evidence. The fact she is deleting history tells you everything. If it was all innocent, why hide it? She says it's not a big deal. Dude, this woman definitely has no respect for you at all. If it was nothing serious, why would she lie and delete the conversations then? You should definitely contact OP's wife, since it's no big deal anyway.
Is my wife cheating on me? I have been married 5 years now. My wife and I always had separate friend groups. I hang out with my people and she hang out with hers. I never minded that during our entire relationship. We know of each other's friends obviously from meeting them and hanging out with them occasionally for big family and friend events like birthdays and such. However, when one day I went to surprise my wife and kind of crash her pool party with her friends at one of her girlfriend's house, I saw something that just kind of really rubbed me the wrong way. Everyone was surprised when I arrived, but we all said our hellos and stuff. So I get kind of socially settled and most people are downstairs in the living room or outside at the pool, and when I ask where my wife is, she was in the basement room hanging out. I didn't think too much of it. Yet, 'cause it was almost like a small house party, there was quite a few people everywhere, all of them I've seen before though, so no strangers. Some dudes were hanging out upstairs, downstairs, you get the gist. So I go downstairs and, visually, what I see first is my wife, and a guy holding her arms behind her head while sitting next to each other. And when I mean holding her arms, I mean like that BDSM pose, elbows high to the ceiling, hands on the back of her neck. It didn't visually look casual at all. My brain immediately processes, weird. I greet my wife and she hugs me and stuff. They both tell me she strained her shoulder bad and he was helping her like stretch it out. I understand it was a pool party, but with her in a bikini and him holding her like that. It just felt all very strange to say the least. And again, I know it's a pool party, but at the same time I swear. Like, to be fair, no, I would not bet my life on it, but I swear it looked more like saliva than water on certain parts of her body, and for a lack of a better term, the room honestly kind of smelled like my wife's natural scent, but I really don't know if that was just me spiraling into a dangerous delusion that my brain made up. What I do know is that I could see my wife's chest was erect through the bikini. However, I know my wife better than anyone else. I know this happens when she goes swimming sometimes for her. I seriously didn't want to come off as like a crazy jealous husband, so even though I felt weird, I didn't really say anything. I made small talk with the guys there and stuff. Now, I'm like not well known around these people, some of them have no idea who I am, and others only know me as my wife's husband. So needless to say, starting confrontation was kind of on the bottom of my list. My wife's close girlfriend who was throwing the pool party comes down and asks for me and some other guy in the room to come help her set up some tent outside. My brain was overloaded on so much stimulus happening right now that I just kind of said, yeah for sure, and just autopilot-ed my way with this other dude to go help. That's when I see the guy who was holding my wife start holding her again. My wife had like a surprised expression, but not like a peril expression, like all she said was, "Oh." My head is like trailing behind my body as I move toward the stairs and I ask my wife, "Are you good?" And she nods at me with a big smile and says, "Yeah, for sure, we're gonna go up to the pool again now." To be honest, I think I let myself leave in that moment because my fight or flight system kicked in when I saw that and I instinctively chose flight. Call me weak IDC. But same thing happens when some driver road rages at me and I choose to pretend like I don't see him driving up next to me. I go upstairs. I've never built a tent before. I'm fumbling around like a moron with these random dudes like idiots fucking around trying to build this stupid thing, and I don't see my wife come up for a long while. I only see her come out to the pool towards me after I almost make the decision to just screw the tent and go back downstairs. Comments.
Cheating or not, I wouldn't be okay with what you saw, and my wife knows it. Whether you want to act on the BS speech that you don't want to look like the jealous husband and you must trust your wife is up to you. You didn't realize her friend came for you, so your wife and him could continue on their affair. All the people at the party, and she came for you to help with the tent, and you said nothing? I thought the exact same thing. The friend who pulled him out of the basement knows something that he doesn't. Oof, yeah, that's an absolute no from me. Call me and my wife traditional, but that would never be acceptable. Why the hell wouldn't she come up with you? No respect whatsoever. She should have been on your hip introducing you to everyone. I know you probably feel weak for not confronting, but I get it. If that's not your style, plus you felt overwhelmed by it all, I can see you just going into shock. The fact that you guys have different friend groups that you haven't brought the other into is also weird. Marriage means to join lives. Your friends become her friends and vice versa. Her going to a mixed-gender house party without you is absurd. What kind of marriage is this? I think his regret now is on not having said anything to the man physically restraining his wife. That is going to burn him for the rest of his life. In reality, he should have told the man, "Hey, get your F***king hands off of my wife," immediately, and told his wife to go back home with him to discuss what he had just walked into. And on the way out, expressed to the hostess how utterly disappointed he was in allowing this nonsense to go on, and that this would have serious implications for future gatherings. That is how you take control of a situation. You act like the adult in the room. Actually, the wife should have introduced the OP to the man. She only hugged him like any friend, with no kiss and no sign of closeness. Given the wife's level of intimacy with the other man, her not even trying to hide anything when the other man went back to hugging her, and the fact that the other man was behaving like her boyfriend, it clearly shows that the OP's wife really does have an official boyfriend after all. These are definitely not the actions of someone who just cheated. On the other hand, from the other guy's behavior, it's evident that he has been in a solid relationship with her for some time. I think I definitely was in shock. Even though technically I didn't really see anything. What I saw was weird for sure, yeah, but I appreciate that you can empathize with the overwhelmingness of it. I wish I was that guy who could immediately flip the switch and get up in someone's face, even at the possibility that they insult me. Dude, I can't relate to this type of passivity in my own life, so it's hard for me to imagine some guy putting his hands on my wife, me just being guided out of the situation. Everyone there sees you as a weak person and has zero respect for you, including your wife. You were let out of the basement because everyone there was in on IT, knows and approves. Disgusting. Your wife has decided to end your marriage and not tell you. You have been demoted to her little non-confrontational buddy that helps pay the bills. She opened your marriage without telling you. She doesn't respect you and is no longer in love with you. How does that feel? Here is your tailor-made non-confrontational, action-oriented approach to your situation. Start separating everything. Finances, where your paycheck goes, separate bank account. Separate all your valuables and important papers, birth certificate, passport, sentimental items, and put them in a secure location. Start withdrawing from her emotionally and physically. The less you see her, the less it will hurt when you leave. Trust me, she's off getting manhandled by her boyfriend. She won't care much. Secure a lawyer and start the process of filing for divorce. Then pick a weekend, one where she lies to you about where she's going and when she's with this guy, and move everything that's yours out. You can worry about mediation after she's served. What is most shocking to me here is the wife's behavior, treating her husband as if he were just an acquaintance and essentially pushing him out of the basement so she could be alone there with the other guy and finish whatever they were doing, only coming back to the party much later. That cruel attitude alone would already be enough for me to divorce her right there at the party.
Small update, is my wife cheating on me? Making a small update because some in the comments were getting antsy or something ick. There isn't all too much that I learned yet. However, I have been going based on her behavior ever since that day. But just to clarify some of the things some people have been saying in comments. This was not some spring break party bash where there is a bunch of strangers everywhere. What I mean by having separate social groups is that I am not personally best friends or close friends with anyone in her social circle other than my wife. I hung out with them and seen them around at family events and occasional double dates, but I would not call any of them a close friend of mine that I would personally call up to hang out with just me alone. The same way how my wife is not personally close friends with any of my social circle friends that I am close with my entire life. So I do know all of them, I just don't regularly hang out with them all too often the way my wife does. Same way how my wife often doesn't come out with me to hang out with my friends from college. Within that context, I do know the guy who was holding her. Again, I just wouldn't consider him a personal friend of mine. He is a friend of hers for almost a decade now. I have seen and talked with him often enough as we usually go together in a group to concerts and cosplay events, stuff like that, maybe like 3 times a year or something. I didn't know his job or anything else about who he is outside of small talk at conventions and events we go to together as a group of 15 to 20 people. That's just me. I'm not a super talkative person. I usually just ride group conversations if there are a lot of us. My wife didn't ignore me when she finally did come back out. She came out straight towards me and we hung out together the rest of the day. Although it was a crappy day for me because I was just feeling overwhelmed and a bit yucky inside, angry too at myself. There were no words spoken about it, but I could tell she also felt a little awkward too. Which goes on to her behavior when we got back home. My instinct at the time was that I was on hyper alert for anything weird, or any type of love-bombing behavior. She didn't treat me poorly or neglect me, and she also didn't overly shower me with more affection than she normally would. But I can tell there was an awkward energy between us. I didn't say anything at the party or in the car, but when we got home I did take a moment to ask about her shoulder and what I saw in the basement room. She immediately answered with, "Yeah, that was weird, right?" And she gave me space to sort of rant about it. She did wholeheartedly agree that it was strange after I told her my side, but she told me the guy friend is a chiropractor/massage therapist or something. We went back and forth about that whole situation. She didn't say any words that I thought would be red flags, like overreacting, me being controlling, etc. However, the conversation ended with the theme of, "It's fine, he's a chiro/massage therapist and it only looked weird from the outside." I'm still letting this cook in my mind, so to speak. To be honest, I'm not sure what kind of take on that I should have. But as of the time of this writing, I chose not to pursue or argue anything back just yet until I have more solid evidence, and I plan to see what goes on in her friend group more closely. I am still keeping my eyes and ears open, doing my own things to find out more. One thing that currently irks me is that she did ice her shoulder area a couple times, but there was no real way to prove any shoulder issue and simultaneously no way to disprove it either. Comments.
It sounds like you're trying to convince yourself that she's not cheating. Sometimes people don't want to hear or see the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed. You find your wife in a basement, wearing a bikini, with erect nipples being manipulated by some guy, and you have to worry about being viewed as controlling? These are strange times. Did you at least verify if he is a massage therapist or chiropractor? Google him. What was the guy wearing when it happened? Were there other people in the basement? Or just the two of them?
Update, is my wife cheating on me? I've been reading some comments and there seems to be this wild theory being crafted. While I hope it is not true, I very much highly doubt something as deep as that is going on. My wife and I have had a long-standing daily routine and hang out together almost 24/7 unless we're at work. We have free access to each other's phone and we share each other's location. I also know the guy, like I said, who was holding her at the party. If he was that involved in my wife's life, I would know. Which means for this theory to be true, it would probably require that my wife has a burner phone and that they are somehow fooling around at my wife's work, which is highly unlikely as the nature of my wife's work is very public. We have a good relationship other than the odd things this update will be about. But in terms of how she treats me and how we treat each other, we are practically each other's best friend. With that being said, we stick to each other's hip pretty much, and my wife goes to hang out with her friend group maybe once a month or once every 2 months usually throughout the year, and I join her on occasion. As a side note, many were asking if they were alone in the basement room. It was them and one other guy. The other guy at the time was sitting in front of them on the floor playing a video game on a TV set. Update. I called up my own friends to hang out and talk about this last night. They thought I was joking at first, but we talked about it seriously after I explained to them what I experienced and how I felt. My friends have all met her friends before on occasion, but one friend of mine in particular, I valued his perspective most because after my wife and I got married, he was the one guy who integrated with her friend group more directly than any of my other friends. He agrees that's definitely odd what I saw. But he went on to tell me that it wasn't the first time he's seen what I described. He explained to me that he has seen the same guy do the same thing to another woman in my wife's friend group on 2 separate occasions. He told me he's never seen him do it to my wife though. We all agreed, the guy in question was a little bit of a weirdo. Just someone who seems like they either don't understand social cues fully or the type who just doesn't care. Possibly not really important, but we did agree on that. The most concerning to me is my friend's explanation of what he saw a while back ago. I am taking everything here with a grain of salt since he and I talked about this only in hindsight now. During a camp-out trip hosted at a borrowed Airbnb in the woods, I guess like a retreat. My friend told me they arrived around 8 p.m. and the parking spots right next to the Airbnb were taken by their group and then everyone else in the group had to park at a private designated parking area. It took maybe a 6-minute walk, he says, from the parking area to the Airbnb. Supposedly my wife forgot her phone in her car and the same guy who was holding her at the pool party, volunteered to walk with her because it was getting dark. My friend told me 2 of my wife's girlfriends tagged along and one other dude also joined them, saying that they saw a vending machine at the parking area and wanted candy. My friend told me at the time he thought nothing of it and said everyone was just having a good time. From his recollection, he said my wife's girlfriends and the guy returned to the Airbnb about 40-ish minutes later, while my wife and the guy from the pool party didn't return until a little bit after them, about 45-ish minutes later. He did admit he has no idea the exact times, but it was his best guess, and also mentioned in general he felt like it was quite a long time before they returned, possibly even an hour later. There was more that we talked about, but I will update later as currently I don't have the time to write all of it down. I'm still keeping my eyes and ears open. I did, most importantly, look into if this guy is actually a chiro or massage therapist or whatever. From what I looked into it and from what I asked through text the closest person I'm with in my wife's friend group other than my wife, he confirmed to me that this guy was a licensed massage therapist, but he didn't renew the license and ceased to be one professionally about 2 years ago. Comments.
Denial. Your own post completely undermines the excuses you are trying to make for your wife. You two have a long-standing daily routine and spend almost 24/7 together. Yet there are 2 incidents, witnessed by you and at least your friend, that are impossible to explain, one of them being completely absurd. Maybe she is not your best friend after all. Getting lost in a dark forest at night with the same guy for a full hour on a route that should have taken 6 minutes? Unless they somehow ended up in Narnia, I cannot imagine what other excuse she could possibly come up with. Did you ever confront her about that? I still wonder whether she ever explained what happened to her shoulder that was bad enough to require a massage in the basement and ice packs for days. Wasn't your friend at the pool party? Did the camping trip happen recently, or was it a while ago? Please keep us updated on what else you and your friend talked about. This guy's going to look back on this at some point and think, damn, all of those guys were right. Dude, my husband was cheating on me with my best friend at work with me there. Opie, what are you doing, man? I am not saying your wife is cheating or not, but she's going to pool parties with other guys and now overnight retreats in an Airbnb. I get that relationships are based on trust, but partners shouldn't put each other in these types of uncomfortable situations. Back in the day, people were often concerned about creating even the appearance of impropriety. In modern terms, spouses often go out of their way to avoid creating a false impression. It's not just about what your partner may think, but society at large. You don't want to look like you're out there flirting with others or disrespecting your partner. This extends to friends too. Another man should know his boundaries around a married woman. Otherwise, he's looking for trouble. Trust has its limits, and we should be mindful not to put unnecessary stress on our relationship. You need to rein in this behavior, or you're going to keep running into these sorts of problems.
Caught my wife texting her coworker late at night for the 3rd time this month, and the messages are way too flirty, need real advice. So this all started about 6 weeks ago when I noticed my wife Sarah staying up until 1 or 2 a.m. scrolling on her phone in the living room instead of coming to bed with me like usual. We've been married 7 years and have 2 kids ages 4 and 6, so our routine used to be pretty solid with her handling bedtime stories while I cleaned up the kitchen. One night I got up for water and saw her phone screen reflecting off the window, and it was open to a text thread with some guy named Mike from her office. The messages were things like, "Can't stop thinking about our lunch today," and "Wish we could have stayed longer at that spot by the river," with a bunch of laughing emojis and heart eyes. I didn't confront her right away because I wanted proof first. Over the next couple weeks I started checking her phone when she was in the shower, and there were more and more of these conversations. They talked about meeting up after work twice and how she lied to me saying she was working late on a project. Last Thursday I saw a message where he said, "Last night was incredible," and she replied with, "Yeah, we have to be careful though, my husband is starting to ask questions." That hit me like a truck. We've had some rough patches with money and her new job stress, but nothing that made me think she'd cheat. Now I'm sitting here wondering if I should install a tracker app or just pack a bag and take the kids to my parents for a bit while I figure this out. Has anyone else dealt with a situation where the affair was with a coworker and they had to keep seeing each other every day? How did you handle the gaslighting when they swore it was just friendly? I feel like my whole life is falling apart and I can't even sleep without replaying those texts in my head. Any advice on next steps would help because right now I'm just numb and angry at the same time. Comments.
Lawyer up and listen to what legal advice they can give you, because at this point you really need to play it smart. That's right, you already have enough evidence. Take it to a divorce attorney, even if you don't plan to file right away, and follow his advice. Whether you decide to divorce or try to reconcile, do so from a position of strength. Do not beg, plead, or cry, no matter what you feel inside. Be strong and stoic, even if you have to fake it. Maintain your self-respect. If I could upvote this 1,000 times, I would. Lawyer before any confrontation. If it were me, she would never see it coming. I would have her serve at work and send the HR manager an email that if they have any questions to contact you directly. Also, is Loverboy married? She deserves to know after the papers are filed. In addition to what State Large suggests, I recommend you check out the user profile any_assault. Scroll down to his first post and go up. He's super articulate and came up with a solid plan in a similar situation to yours. Edit to add. I suggest gathering information and proof and consulting an attorney before confronting her.
The cost of being the faithful one. I am sorry I am having a hard day today and needed to vent. I recently wrote about why I stayed faithful. I wrote about character, our children, my vows, and the fact that pain was never permission for me to create more pain. But there is another side to that choice that doesn't sound nearly as noble. Staying faithful did not mean I was happy. It didn't mean I felt loved, desired, appreciated, or even noticed. It didn't mean I was somehow less lonely than she was. It just meant I carried my loneliness differently. I carried it quietly. And quiet pain is incredibly easy to ignore. There are no deleted messages proving how unwanted I felt. There are no hotel receipts documenting the nights I lay beside my wife feeling completely alone. There are no secret meetings showing how desperately I wanted to feel like more than a provider, a problem solver, a chauffeur, and a co-parent. There is no paper trail for the conversations I tried to start, the rejection I swallowed, or the number of times I convinced myself that this was just a hard season and things would get better. There is only the fact that I stayed. I went to work, I paid the bills, I raised our kids, I fixed what broke. I carried the responsibilities because that was what I believed a husband and father was supposed to do. I kept showing up even when it felt like nobody was showing up for me. That is what faithful spouses do. We don't always leave, and we don't betray anyone but ourselves. Sometimes we just absorb everything. We absorb the silence, the lack of intimacy, the creeping feeling that everyone else's needs matter more than our own. We make excuses for the distance because we love the person creating it. We become patient, then more patient, and eventually so patient that nobody notices we are slowly disappearing. Because I kept functioning, everyone assumed I was fine. Because I didn't create chaos, my loneliness never became an emergency. Because I remained dependable, my pain was mistaken for strength. And then I discovered that while I was carrying the marriage, she had been stepping outside it. That is the hardest thing to accept. While I was denying myself an escape, she was granting herself one. While I was protecting our family from my pain, she was using her pain to justify risking it. While I was telling myself that marriage means enduring loneliness without destroying everything around you, she was creating a second life where none of the responsibilities followed her. Then, after discovery, I was still expected to understand. I had to understand her loneliness. Her unmet needs, her coping mechanisms, her childhood, her desire for validation. Her ability to compartmentalize, her fear and her shame. I have spent more time trying to understand why my wife betrayed me than anyone ever spent asking what it took for me not to betray her. My faithfulness didn't happen because my needs were being met. It happened despite the fact that they were starved. I was lonely too. I felt unwanted too. I wanted to be touched, desired, and chosen. I wanted someone to look at me and see something more than a tool that fixes things and pays bills. I tried to talk and tell. There were times when attention from another woman would have felt incredible. There were times when being admired would have filled something in me that had been empty for years. I had opportunities. I had the same easy access to phones, messages, secrecy, and validation that everyone else has. But I understood that feeling deprived did not give me the right to become deceptive. So I brought my pain home. I tried to talk. I tried to explain that I was lonely, that the intimacy was dead, and that our marriage had become transactional. I didn't always say it perfectly. Sometimes my frustration sounded like anger, sometimes I withdrew because I was tired of saying the same things to a brick wall. But I brought the problem into the marriage. I didn't take it outside and build a second one. Faithfulness didn't prevent me from being hurt. It prevented me from becoming someone I would hate, and I am so glad I made the choices I did. It allowed me to look at our children and know I hadn't gambled their stability for a temporary feeling. It allowed me to look in the mirror and know I hadn't forced my wife to question whether the years she lived beside me were even real. But it didn't protect me from the cost of carrying it all alone. Parts of me became hard during those years. There are needs I just stopped expressing because being disappointed repeatedly teaches you to stop asking. There were times I accepted absolutely nothing because admitting how hungry I was felt more humiliating than pretending I was full. That wasn't strength. It was survival. I am proud that I stayed faithful. I am proud that loneliness didn't break my values, that rejection didn't become my excuse, and that opportunity didn't become my permission. But I am done pretending it didn't cost me anything. It cost me everything I have and more. It cost me pieces of my confidence, not in myself but others. It cost me years of swallowing things I should have screamed. It cost me the belief that if you love someone completely, they will naturally protect you in return. It cost me the certainty that the person sleeping next to me was carrying the same marriage I was. Then discovery handed me even more to carry. The images. The questions. The humiliation. The ruined memories. The responsibility of keeping our children steady while I could barely keep myself standing. I stayed faithful because I refused to make my pain someone else's wound. She didn't make that same choice. I don't regret keeping my word. I don't regret protecting my children from choices that would destroy their sense of safety. I don't regret remaining faithful, even to someone who wasn't being faithful to me. What I regret is how long I believed that being dependable meant I was supposed to live without being cared for. I regret how much of myself I allowed to die while trying to keep the marriage alive. Being faithful shouldn't require you to vanish. Love shouldn't mean starving quietly so everyone else can stay comfortable. My integrity protected my family from my choices. It did not protect me from hers. And even knowing what it cost me, I would still choose faithfulness again. Not because she deserved it, and not because the marriage was always worthy of the sacrifice. But because I deserved to remain the man I believed myself to be. I don't regret protecting her. I regret that the person I protected didn't protect me. Comments.
This is why divorce courts need fixing. I think part of why you're reluctant to leave is because the courts will punish you for her infidelity by giving away half the stuff you worked for. The stuff is not my concern at all. If she would grant 100% custody, I would gladly give everything away. I had someone lay into me in another comment because my ex-husband cheated and gave in to every request I made in the divorce, including allowing me primary custody. They said it was selfish of me to deny my children a relationship with their father because I was bitter about the affair. I still don't know quite how to feel about this. I know it is the judgment of a random internet stranger, and they don't know all of the details, but it stung. I was like you. My husband was a functioning alcoholic. I loved him, but I begged him to stop drinking. We had our issues, but I chose integrity, not ever considering that his choices would make mine irrelevant. I don't see why his shitty choices should reduce my time with my children or force me back into the workforce to accommodate his desire for 50-50 custody when they would have to be in daycare while he works anyways. I am so sorry that you have had to go through all of this. I, for one, now have been given a new perspective to look at things now. Thank you. You're a great man, a great husband. I hope you and your wife can find your way back to one another, because I pray every day that my husband and I do.
Now ex-wife cheated. The move-out happened Sunday. She came back for a family event Tuesday with a hickey, left and came back Friday to see the kids and beg for me to take her back. She admitted to me he was the reason for divorce, that she lied multiple times about going to see family while seeing him. I told her I can't give her a chance with what she's done. She has stayed Friday and Saturday night, constantly trying to convince me she could make things better, trying to sleep with me, offer an open relationship, and I refuse. As of now, the plan is to sit the kids down before she leaves Sunday. The kids will remain here at their house, going to their school, and being around their family. I have since stopped trying to understand and accepted that she just chose another life apart from the one we built together. Things suck at the moment, especially with what the kids will go through. But I know it's for the best. Thank you all for the advice. I will try to keep this straight to the point. Me, M30, and my ex-wife, F30, have been together since high school. We have 2 beautiful boys and a house together. Prior to our divorce, she had the supervisor at her SAH job that I suspected foul play with. It started with her hiding her phone, eventually changing her passwords on everything, and me finding long after-hour conversations. Despite all of it, I asked her to stop and focus on us and the kids. To a couple weeks later it picks up again. It may have never actually stopped. She later divorced me, saying I did not give her enough. I found out that they actually have been dating for 7 months. That she loves him and later admits to having an affair with him. I have given multiple chances to choose her family over the affair partner. Was told she couldn't break it off and had to do it in her own time. She has since left the state to be with him and refuses to consider coming back to at the very least be closer to the kids. I have told her my feelings towards it all. I won't accept her back after the multiple chances and the affair. But that she is more than welcome back in the house and to be with the kids and eventually find something closer. She refuses to come back. I am having a hard time understanding why someone would leave their kids behind to pursue someone they barely know. I'm having a hard time trying to rid myself of the feelings I have and just let her go. I'd appreciate any advice. Comments.
Document all. When the affair ends, she'll be back wanting the kids. You'll need to be prepared for this. Her parents know that she cheated. If not, tell them. Move on. Get therapy. If you can be bothered and the AP works at the same company still, inform HR that he started an affair with your ex while she was married, and she was managed by him at the time. Most companies frown at superiors having relationships with PPL they manage. I'm not surprised your HS sweetheart marriage didn't last. It's far more common than you think. But you've got to be a huge piece of shit to abandon your kids. Take her to court and bury her for abandoning those kids. Be sure you're getting the maximum support to take care of them, to grow up motherless. Do the work to recover. She's clearly got mental health issues. So it feels so awful not, but put the time and effort to help heal and your kids to heal from the abandonment. Thank you for the response. I am focusing on the kids and the healing process for all of us at the moment. The hard part is understanding why and still not be in love with her. Stop trying to understand her and accept her for who she has become. She is no longer the woman you met years ago. Instead, she is a stranger that looks like her. So stop asking her to do anything and focus on helping your kids with their trauma. File for divorce on the grounds of abandonment and seek full custody of the kids. If she comes back, do not let her back in the home. Only offer her supervised visits until she shows she is not going to do more damage to them. If she wants to talk to them, she will call. If not, accept that and keep going. In the meantime, make their life as happy and meaningful as you can. They need one functional parent now more than ever. Good luck!
The woman my dad had an affair with reported my mom to HR. Found out my dad was having an affair with a woman for a whole year. They were basically in a relationship. She was even asking him if they could be more. He would buy her fancy jewelry, take her to fancy dinners and do stuff for her he's never done for my mom. My mom was crushed just like all of us and wanted to talk to the woman. Mind you, my mom is 50 and the woman is 28. She was messaging her on Facebook and calling her trying to have a conversation. My mom comes back to work the next day and is pulled aside by HR. The woman reported my mom to HR for harassment. My mom didn't even do anything. This 28-year-old willingly had an affair with my dad, 50, knowing he has 3 kids and a wife. And now she's trying to get my mom fired. Please tell me how insane this. How are you attacking the wife of the man you willingly cheated with for a year? I'm in disbelief at how low she is stooping. What can my mom do? Comments.
Tell your mom to get a lawyer and restraining order and see if they can sue her. Do this ASAP and tell her to tell HR everything and get your lawyer to send a letter to her job. Tell HR the truth about what is going on. As long as your mom wasn't threatening violence, then this will be a moral issue and depend solely on what kind of morals this company has. Then waylay your dad and tell him what a jerk he is. That 28-year-old sounds immature. She was willing to have an affair with a married man, but when the consequences caught up with her, she couldn't handle it and ran to HR. Tell your mom to lawyer up and go after everything your dad has.
Thanks for watching my video. Please like it and subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories.